Today, we are going to learn how to find the area of a parallelogram, a triangle, and a trapezoid.
Welcome to Math Challengers.
As we go through the lesson, listen carefully and try to understand not only the formulas, but also why the formulas work. Please prepare your paper and pencil. You may also pause the video whenever you need more time to think or solve. Let us begin. What is area? Let us begin by understanding what area means. Area is the amount of space inside a two-dimensional shape. In simple words, area tells us how much space a flat shape covers. For example, imagine a piece of paper. The space covered by the paper is its area. We measure area using square units, such as square centimeters, square meters, or square kilometers. Remember this important idea. Area measures the space inside a shape. Look at the small squares on the screen. Each small square represents 1 square centimeter. If we count all the small squares inside the shape, we can find its area. There are 20 small squares. Therefore, the area of the shape is 20 square centimeters. Notice that we use square centimeters, not simply centimeters. Centimeters measure length. Square centimeters measure area, or the amount of surface covered by a shape. So when you give an answer for area, always remember to use square units. Area of a parallelogram. Now let us find the area of a parallelogram. A parallelogram is a four-sided shape with two pairs of parallel sides. To find its area, we use the formula area equals base times height. In this example, the base is 6 meters and the perpendicular height is 4 meters. Let us substitute the measurements into the formula. Area equals 6 meters times 4 meters. 6 times 4 is 24. Therefore, the area of the parallelogram is 24 square meters. Remember that the height is the perpendicular distance from the base to the opposite side. The slanted side is not always the height. Now let us move on to the triangle. Here's an important question. Can we use a parallelogram to help us find the area of a triangle? Yes, we can. A triangle can be thought of as 1/2 of a parallelogram with the same base and height. If we divide a parallelogram along a diagonal, we get two triangles. The two triangles have equal areas. Therefore, one triangle is half the area of the parallelogram. Since the area of a parallelogram is base times height, the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. Let us look at the triangle formula carefully. The area of a triangle equals 1/2 times base times height. The base is the side we choose as the base, and the height is the perpendicular distance from that base to the opposite vertex. To solve for the area, first identify the base and the perpendicular height. Next, multiply the base by the height. Then take 1/2 of the product. For example, if the base is 8 units and the height is 5 units, multiply 8 by 5 to get 40. Half of 40 is 20. So the area would be 20 square units. The same formula works for acute, right, and obtuse triangles. Let us solve the example shown on the screen. We are asked to find the area of an acute triangle. The base is 8 meters, and the perpendicular height is 9 meters. Our formula is area equals 1/2 times base times height. Substitute the values. Area equals 1/2 times 8 meters times 9 meters. First, multiply 8 by 9. 8 times 9 is 72. Now, take 1/2 of 72. 72 divided by 2 is 36. Therefore, the area of the triangle is 36 square meters. Now, let us learn about the trapezoid. A trapezoid has two parallel sides. These parallel sides are called the bases. The longer base is called base₁, and the shorter base is called base₂. The height is the perpendicular distance between the two bases. Look carefully at the diagram. The height forms a right angle with the bases. The slanted sides are not the height. This is very important. When finding the area of a trapezoid, identify base₁, base₂, and the perpendicular height. Now, instead of simply memorizing the formula for the area of a trapezoid, let us understand where it comes from. Imagine that we have two identical trapezoids. If we place them together, they form a parallelogram. The base of the new parallelogram is made by combining the two bases of the trapezoid. So the base of the parallelogram is base₁ plus base₂. The height remains the same. We already know that the area of a parallelogram is base times height. Therefore, the area of the parallelogram is base₁ plus base₂, multiplied by the height. But remember, the parallelogram is made from two identical trapezoids. So the area of one trapezoid is 1/2 of the area of the parallelogram. That is why the trapezoid formula contains 1/2. We can now write the formula for the area of a trapezoid. Area equals 1/2 times the sum of the two bases times the height. In symbols, we can write A equals 1/2 times open parentheses b1 plus b2 close parentheses times h. b1 represents the first base. b2 represents the second base. H represents the perpendicular height. When solving, follow these steps. First, add the two bases. Second, multiply the sum by the height. Third, divide the product by 2. Finally, write the answer using square units. For example, if the bases are 4 centimeters and 8 centimeters and the height is 6 centimeters, first add 4 and 8 to get 12. Then multiply 12 by 6 to get 72. Finally, divide 72 by 2 to get 36. Therefore, the area is 36 square centimeters. Let us review the trapezoid formula once more. The area of a trapezoid equals 1/2 times the sum of base₁ and base₂ times the height. Remember the three measurements we need: base₁, base₂, and perpendicular height. Do not use a slanted side as the height unless it is actually perpendicular to the bases. Let us summarize what we have learned today. We learned how to find the area of a parallelogram, a triangle, and a trapezoid. For a parallelogram, the formula is area equals base times height, or A equals B times H. Remember that H is the perpendicular height. For a triangle, we have two equivalent formulas. A equals 1/2 times B times H, or A equals B times H divided by 2. Both formulas give the same answer. For a trapezoid, we also have two equivalent formulas. A equals open parentheses b1 plus b2 close parentheses divided by 2 times h, or A equals 1/2 times open parentheses b1 plus b2 close parentheses times h. Remember that b1 and b2 are the two parallel bases, while h is the perpendicular height. When finding the area of any shape, follow these steps. First, identify the base and the perpendicular height. Second, choose the correct formula. Third, substitute the given measurements carefully. Fourth, solve the problem step by step. And fifth, write your final answer using the correct square unit. Most importantly, remember that area tells us how much space is inside a shape. So always remember to use square units when giving your final answer. Great job, grade 5 learners!